Good morning, everyone. I'm Himanshu Tripathi, Assistant Professor in Electronics and Communication Engineering Department at Akgec. And today I'm going to present a session that is based on the negotiation and the communication in business processes. So as you know that we are talking about startups, we are talking about the entrepreneurship. So during the entrepreneurship, this is also a very important concept. Every entrepreneur or every startup founder should need to understand or should need to get the expertise in these two basic skills, fundamental skills, which are required if he or she wants to start his own company. So these are the fundamental skills, and we are going to talk about negotiation and communication in businesses. So let's start our talk. The first thing that we want to talk about the foundation of communication and negotiation, why these two skills are required, and what can be the various propositions when we are involved into the negotiation or we are involved into the communication. So mostly if we are focused towards the negotiation, then we can see every negotiation or every communication may end or may focus on these three value propositions. The first value proposition is the win-win proposition. The second one is the win-lose proposition. And third one is the lose-lose proposition. So as these names are suggesting that if we are opting for win-win proposition for our negotiation or the communication during the business processes, then here both sides leaves the better offers. Buyer or seller it may be, company and customer it may be. So if we are, any startup founder is going for the win-win proposition, that means we want to end up for the profit, with the profit for the company and with the profit or the value delivery to the consumer as well. Most of the time, we have seen this, these win-lose propositions are also existing. And if we are talking about the win-lose proposition, that means one side gains and at the other side's expense. That means one side is gaining something and the other side is losing something. Most of the time, when this proposition is being used, we say that this is going to create a one-time customer only. So we need to, as a startup, it is always recommended to avoid these kind of propositions. And lose-lose means nobody is having any profit, nobody is gaining anything. So this proposition must be avoided in all the circumstances, and we should say that there is no deal in this value proposition. So according to this theory, we need to select the type of negotiation we want to enter while we are starting the negotiation process. So let us see in brief detail that what is the win-win negotiation. It is also called as an integrative negotiation. The goal is to expand the pie, not just divide the pie. We are expanding the horizon, and we are basically offering better value proposition to the customer or to the client, and also we are ensuring that as a company or as a startup, we are also getting benefited if that deal is going to happen. So this is called the win-win negotiation, and these are the main advantages or the focus points of this win-win negotiation proposition. That is, we always focus on interest, not the positions. It is imperative, or it is not having any meaning that what is the position of the company or what is the position of the customer. It is not, it doesn't matter in this proposition. We are always focused towards the interest of the company and interest of the consumer. Then we try to create value before claiming it. And if we are using win-win negotiation, the most important thing, we are intending to build a long-term relationship with our client. So whatever we are going to discuss here, it doesn't mean that we are talking about always company and the client or company or the customer. We may be talking about company and the vendor if we are into the process of procurement. So we'll see with some examples that how these things can be helpful when we are dealing with various stakeholders of our startup. Right. The next type is win-lose. And as I told you earlier, that always proceed with the caution if we are choosing for the win-lose proposition, because it is not one of the best, or it is not recommended negotiation proposition for any starter. So if we are talking about the win-lose, that means it is a distributive negotiation. The later one, the earlier negotiation process, that was a win-win. We told you that it was the integrative, but it is distributive in nature. So common in one-time transactions. If we are using that win-lose, then we can hope only for the one-time transaction, or for the competitive bidding. It is also very useful, right? When this kind of proposition will work, if you are purchasing something that you are not supposed to purchase every periodic time period, that is every year or every 6 months or every month. For example, we are going to purchase a car. So here, building long-term relationship may not be as important as a customer if you are getting a good deal. So in that case, we can go for the win-lose proposition here. Similarly, it is not depending upon the customer side, it is also implemented, or it can be implemented from the company side or the agency side if you are handling the car purchases. Salary offers, they are most of the time are the win-lose propositions. One party try to put himself or herself at the better position rather than giving or delivering the better value. And one-off deals, always I told you that win-lose proposition is going to be used. Then the hidden cost of this win-lose proposition, why we are recommending and why it is always recommended that we need to avoid this win-lose proposition while we are into the negotiation process, because it always comes with some hidden cost, because it is burning the bridges, it is spoiling the partnership or the relationship between the customer and the company, between the vendor and the company and two stakeholders. Definitely, it is the hidden cost of this win-lose proposition when we are concerned about the negotiation. So the key thing here is that if we are looking for the repeated partners or the repeated customers, we need to avoid this win-lose proposition while we are entering into the negotiation process. One of the core concept that is very famous into the domain of negotiation, and that concept is known as the partner concept. So let's see that what is this partner concept. Here, Bhatna is having different alphabetical letters, and each letter is having some specific meaning. Bhatna means best alternative to a negotiated agreement. That is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. When any person or any company is going as a project manager, if I am going for the purchase, then I need to build my Bhatna. That means I need to have some alternatives. If that deal is not going to work, if I am asking the value and the vendor is not ready to provide me the value at the specific prices which I am asking, then I need to have a better alternative so that I can negotiate with that vendor, right? So that better alternatives that I am having are known as the Bhatna, and it is always told that you need to build a strong Bhatna before you are going into the negotiation. So Bhatna was popularized in 1980s by the researchers Roger Fisher and William Urey. They were the Harvard University's negotiation program. They were the part of that program, and Bhatna is often used in commercial negotiations. I am talking about the commercial negotiations. It is also useful in all kind of negotiation context. Your Bhatna is your walkaway power. I'm again and again emphasizing that if you are seriously looking for the negotiation, it may be any kind of negotiation, it may be related to any process of your business or startup, then this partner is going to be very helpful for you. If you are spending, it is always advised that you spend a lot of time, you need to spend a lot of time in creating your own partner. Creating your own partner means nothing but you need to find out the better alternatives. If you are going to purchase one thing, for example, I am going to purchase the computer for my startup and I know only one vendor. So I may be stuck if that vendor is not going to provide me a good deal. It may be in terms of the delivery date, it may be in terms of the price, it may be in terms of the specifications of that computer which I am asking. So if I'm having a list of vendors and these vendors are ready with some different kind of propositions, there are different kind of delivery dates, maybe different value propositions, means different prices and different specifications, then it gives me the strength to negotiate with all the vendors, because I know that if that deal is not going to happen, I may be having a better deal waiting for me. So that is the power of BATNA, and that is the core concept of BATNA. In the BATNA, so if we are using the BATNA process, that means three things are important to us. The first thing is know your BATNA and know about the BATNA, and then we need to work upon the strengthen our BATNA. That means I know the process of BATNA. I know the process, or I know the importance of having the better alternatives or the best alternatives for a negotiated to a negotiated agreement. And how may I strengthen the BATNA? That means I may be having different kind of vendors. If I am doing a job interview and I am looking for a better or best employee for my startup, then always this BATNA is going to be very useful. If I am having better CVs at my hand, then I can negotiate that person in terms of salary or in terms of other points. The leveraging your BATNA, you need to understand, or you need to know that how to leverage your BATNA, how to hold a deal for some time, and how to get the better offers from the other person or from the other company. And again, I'm emphasizing that the stronger your BATNA, the more confidently you can negotiate. So if you are having better alternatives, then you will feel confident while you will be negotiating with the person or with the company. Or if you are having less alternatives, or your BATNA is weaker, that means you may not be comfortable in negotiation. So this is about BATNA. The stronger the BATNA means the greater the range of alternative course of actions, and the second thing is the greater the ability to walk away from an unsatisfactory negotiation. It is providing you the ability to walk away from that deal if you're not getting all the things as per your desire. But that may happen only if you are having the better alternatives. Then you can go to those alternatives and try to have a better deal as per your requirements, as per your specification sheets. So that is the importance of BATNA. BATNA is important because it offers the negotiating power, definitely, and we have discussed about it. It offers an alternative if negotiation is failed, and that is all about the BATNA is, because it is a best alternative to a negotiated agreement, and it determines the last settable position for each party. So that was all about the BATNA. And if we try to understand BATNA with in more detail with the help of this diagram, so suppose here in this case we are having one seller and we are having one buyer. Okay, then that seller is having some desired selling price and the buyer is having some desired purchase price, right? Then the seller should have the minimum selling price. Seller should be confident that beyond this price point I may not be able to make that selling, and buyer should have in his or her mind the maximum purchase price, that maximum I can spend this much amount on this particular thing. So this may be your agreement area. If seller's minimal selling price is perfectly matching with the maximum purchase price of the buyer side, then the agreement may happen, or the possibility or the probability of happening that agreement is high. Otherwise, seller may look for the other alternatives. Seller's alternatives are there, or they may go for the best fallback solution. Same is true with the buyer also. Buyer may look for the other alternatives and the best fallback solutions. That means that seller should have their own BATNA and the buyer should have their own BATNA, right? So BATNA is important for every stakeholder whosoever is or are involved into the negotiation process. So that was the topic number 1 in this presentation. I told you that I'm going to talk about two things: negotiation and the communication. So we have talked about negotiation, that what the BATNA is and what kind of deals or what kind of value propositions we can offer. Now let's talk about the communication barriers. Even the best deal can collapse if communication breaks. That is the importance of communication. If buyer it may be or seller it may be, they are not able to communicate efficiently, or whatever they are willing to communicate, they are communicating that thing, then the probability of getting deal closer is very high. So let's see the common barriers basically in the business settings regarding the communication. The first barrier is the noise and the distraction. So here the first barrier we are going to talk about. Noise and distractions means it may be the physical, or it may be emotional, or it may be digital interruptions that breaks the focus. So if we want to have an effective communication, we need to understand the noise and the distractions, and we need to avoid these noises and the distractions. Most of the time we have seen that these kind of digital interruptions, while we are basically communicating with the target consumers using the digital media platforms, it may be the social media or it may be any other digital platforms. The second common barrier is the language in the jargons, and this is very important, and this is very common in the communication failure. So for any startup, most of the time I have seen the tech startups, and while these tech startups are talking to their consumers, they are intended, or they generally are using most of the technical jargons, technical keywords to the customers. And most of the time it happens that that technology or that technical product is important for the consumer because it may be solving their daily life problem, but that consumer may not be coming from the technical background. So in that case, if you are using a lot of jargons in your communication, that may create the problem, and that may reduce the effectiveness of your communication. So we need to, it is always advised that we need to avoid the technical terms, or it is also understood that cultural nuisance we need to avoid while we are communicating. Language is one form, because we all understand that whatever the language consumer understands, the startup should speak that language only, and language should be polite and language should be easy to grasp. So that thing is important and that thing is common, but the important point here I want to put emphasis on the jargons that most of the time startups made a mistake because they are coming from the tech background, and for that particular reason they are using a lot of jargons, a lot of technical terms, technology related terms, while they are communicating the benefits of their product or services to the end consumers. And in that at that point their communication is going to be less effective. Then the next important barrier in the communication is the assumptions. If I'm communicating with you and I'm assuming that you know all these things, these are the common sense, and these are the very common fundamentals. So these may be my pre-assumptions, and if I'm assuming all these things, then my communication may be less effective. So in order to make communication more effective, we need to avoid these kind of assumptions. Assumptions is nothing but the presuming the other side wants what you want, right? So if I am looking for something and we are presuming that other side is also looking for the same thing, that may be wrong in most of the cases, and then we need to avoid these kind of assumptions here. And the emotional filters, these are very important, because communication is not only the verbal communication. Communication means involving your gestures, involving your emotions, involving your expressions. Everything is basically the part of the communication. So we need to avoid ego, we need to avoid fear or the pressure clouding relational exchanges. So these may be the next barriers, and these are actually the barriers, the emotional filters we need to put when we need to check about these emotional things when we are into the communication process. Then there is a very old saying that if you want to become a best communicator, you need to become the best listener. Because if you are listening carefully, then that means that the half the communication you have done, because you try to understand that other party is what the other party is saying. So the art of listening versus speaking, we need to talk about this for a minute, that most negotiators do this. They talk, they pitch, they persuade, and they try to push. They wait for their turn to speak, and they generally miss the critical signals in that communication. On the other hand, if we talk about the best negotiators, what they are doing, they are listening first. And this is the key point. This is important. Before you initiate the communication, please try to listen first. Because if you are listening the other party, then you will understand that what their wants are, what they are looking for, and as per their emotional understanding, as per their requirements, and as per the situation, you may convert your pitch, you may convert your persuasion, and you may basically change everything. So, in order to become the best speaker, it is always suggested that please listen first and listen very carefully. And that means nothing but that understand the other side's true need, fears, and the constraints. This will help you to understand in these about these parameters. There is a special message at this point that you can't craft a winning offer without knowing what the other side actually values, right? So that's why the art of listening is way more important than the art of communication. Most of the time, I have seen or I have faced the questions like, I'm not good in English, I'm not good in this particular language, how can I communicate? I'm not feeling confident. So if you want to communicate your message, you want to deliver your message to the other party that these are the things that you have and these are the things that you want. So in that manner, you need to understand the other party first, right? The next thing is, this is the 70-30 rule of communication. If we talk about the 70-30 rule, that means 70% is the listening and 30% is the speaking. That will make you a more effective communicator. So what that 70% is doing, that is helping you in gathering the intelligence, understanding the needs. And this is very important if you want to communicate or if you want to deliver something, if you want to pitch your startup or pitch your idea to someone else or your potential investor, right? So if you are listening them first, that means you understand that what they want, and as per them or as per those insights, as per those intelligence, you can craft your offer. Then speaking means ask sharp questions and make precise offers. Don't elaborate the things very much. To the point, ask questions so that the other party will presume or other party will understand that you are involved into that discussion, and you need to make the precise offers. Elite negotiators use silence as a strategic tool, not a gap to fill. That silence is always a strategic tool. While they are silent, they are basically involved into the listening process, right? Now, let's talk about the active listening techniques. We have talked about the barriers in the communication, and now we are talking about the active listening techniques, how to show that you are a very active listener and how to become an active listener actually, practically. So the first technique is the paraphrases. Paraphrases means, so what I'm hearing is, and repeat the same sentence. That confirms the understanding, and that is very powerful tool or powerful technique if you are acting as a, or you are basically trying to become an active listener, right? So for becoming the active listener, paraphrases are important. In the middle of communication, somewhere you need to put something like, okay, so what I'm getting is, and what I understood is, or what I'm hearing is, and repeat few sentences or repeat few words, right? This will help you to connect with the other person or the other party. The second thing is the label emotions. Label emotions means it seems like flexibility matters a lot of you. If a communicator or other parties basically telling you that I want to be more flexible here, so you can basically tell, okay, it seems like flexibility matters a lot for you. That will help you in becoming the active listener. Other party will very easily get involved in communication with you. The third thing is the calibrated questions. Calibrated questions means, how does this work for your team? That opens dialogue. Then you will have to listen more, and more listening means more understanding about the requirements. The next tool here in this category is strategic silence. In the previous slide, we were talking about the strategic silence that is helping you in listening more. Pause after a key point and let the other party fill the space. So these are the 4 tools I'm talking about. There may be many more tools which can help you in becoming the active listener, but these are the 4 tools which are important. Paraphrases are important. The second tool, the label emotions, are important. Calibrated questions are very important because it gives you the scope to understand more. And strategic silence is always very important because it allows the other person to speak. And while the other person is speaking in your communication process, that means you are getting more intelligence, you are getting more feedback, or you are getting more data to understand that what the other party is looking at. Let's talk about the real scenario: founder pitching to an investor. This may be a very popular scenario among all the startups. The common mistakes is the over pitching. That means talking past the close. And another common mistake is weak partner. I discussed about partner. So if you are not having any other option or any other offer, that means you may be desperate to have that deal before when you are trying to pitch in front of your speaker. So no other term sheets. That means it will put you into the desperation. That is a weak signal, and the weak that is a common mistake when you are going for the pitching. Then if you're ignoring signals from the investors, that means what you are missing, what the investors really needs. If you're missing that particular phenomena, that particular point, that means it may be a very huge mistake if you are pitching in front of investor. So these are the common mistakes that we can easily avoid as a startup. Then what works when we are pitching? That means the first thing, know your walkaway valuation before the meeting, so that as a conclusion, you can be a position of go or no go. If you know that what is your walkaway valuation, that means, okay, up to that limit, I may sign the deal, and beyond that limit or before that limit, I may not be comfortable in signing that deal because I'm having some better alternatives, or the best alternatives I may be having. I am having a strong partner with me. So it is very important before you are going to pitch somewhere or in front of investor, you should know your walkaway valuation, because it is very difficult to decide momentarily or decide at the same time if investor is making any offer in front of you. Then the second thing is, ask what the investor has seen fail, and listen closely. Ask to the investor, what is the experience of that investor in that particular domain in which your startup is working, and what are the assumptions of those investors. They may be rigid that this thing is going to fail because they have seen, and they may be having some past experiences with them. So please ask those scenarios that investor has seen to fail, and please listen closely. The third thing that you can do, position terms as win-win, growth for both sides. Always win-win proposition is the best option. If investor can see their own growth, and they can understand that, okay, by this deal startup is also having or intending to have some growth, then the deal is good for both the parties, right? Then have a competing interest, real or implied. You need to show at least your competing interest. You should be ready to compete. There should be no walk away from that competition, right? So these are the things that may work if you are negotiating with the investors. And these are the common mistakes that I talked about, that overpitching, weak partner, and ignoring signals that we need to avoid when we are pitching in front of any investor. Then let's talk about one more real scenario regarding communication, negotiating with a supplier. I told you that negotiation maybe is a process that may happen between employee and employer, the buyer and the seller, and the company and the supplier, or anywhere, any price point it may happen. then the price is not always the important thing. Most of the time have seen that people are concerned about the pricing, but price is not the important always. Price is really only one variable. Payment terms may be important, 100% advance or 50% advance or 50% after the delivery of the goods or whatever it may be. Freight is included or freight is not included. These terms may also be important. Lead times are very important in now today's competitive world. If someone is asking you to provide that material, your vendor is telling you that they may be able to provide you material in 3 months time, and another vendor is ready to ship you material or provide you the material in 15 days of time, then that may create a lot of impact. Then lead times are also important apart from the value. Then exclusivity is important for every startup. Volume commitments are always important. So we have seen that price is not the only factor where we need to talk or negotiate with the consumers. We need to see all these things as well. So supplier negotiation playbook, I am presenting you that the first step is to prepare. Prepare means you need to know the market rates, build your partner, collect your alternatives, identify minimum 2 to 3 alternatives so that you can negotiate with any supplier. It is a very common practice whenever someone is asking you that, okay, we want to purchase these things, give me the 3 quotations or the 5 quotations. That means you should have a stronger partner, right? Then open high, anchor first. The first number sets the range. Whatever the communication or negotiation is starting with that number, that will set the range that, okay, deal will close around that particular number, right? The third thing is trade. Don't concede. I'll move on price if you move on lead time. That is the trade, and trade is a very common term in nowadays. And the next thing is close clearly, summarize verbally, and confirm in writing. That is the most effective playbook that any supplier negotiation that playbook may be used. So the key takeaways from this session is choose your style. Win-win builds a relationship. Win-lose closes one of deals. You see that which kind of proposition, which kind of style is most suitable for you or most suitable for your particular action. Choose your style, then build your partner. Always in your spare time, create more alternatives so that you can negotiate. If you are involved in communication, then listen more. 70% and 30% rule I have talked about. That is 70% listening unlocks what the other side truly wants, and remove the barriers. Barriers means clarity is important, empathy is important. You need to understand your other party, and preparation dissolve the communication breakdowns. So this is all about the communication and the negotiation skills. Thank you very much.